Hello there guys, it's Captain Invisible here and welcome to some more Napoleon Total War action. I hope you enjoyed the intro. I just thought it would be nice to throw that in just to give you an idea of what the battlefield looks like and all the player names as well. It saves me having to sort of go through them all. So yeah, it just gives you a better idea and a better look at everything at the start of the battle. So yeah, Napoleon Total War, it is a very addicting game, I have to say. It's one of those games where I play a couple of times, I don't think much of, and then for some strange reason I really start getting into it, and then I can't stop playing it. In this instance, it's actually because I'm really bad at the game and I can't win a battle to save my life, so I'm kind of playing tons of games to actually get a battle where I win. So that's always a problem for Napoleon, because it's a very hard game to play if you're sort of new to it, which I'm kind of new. I've played about 7 or 8 games in total, maybe a few more, but I still feel that I'm way out of my depth in some instances. So yeah, this is on the Italian grasslands map, as you saw on the front screen. We are in command of Austria, and Austria are one of my favourite factions. They really are very interesting. Really great cavalry. You know, the Uhlans and the Hungarian Hussars. I think they're back here. Yeah. Oh, the Hungarian Hussars here with the nice red hats and their green cloaks. Look truly epic. And then I've got the heavy cavalry, these guys here, the Archduke Ferdinand Cuirassier, and these guys look absolutely badass. Really are very powerful, heavy cavalry, to chew up enemy infantry. The one area that Austria does suffer is its infantry. I mean, I do have a lot of these. I do have 4 of these German Fusilier. Sort of the standard line infantry of Austria, but they really aren't that great. They're a below average line infantry, to say the least, so you really have to sort of babysit them quite a lot. The morale's a bit shaky, and they're not the best at shooting or in melee, but they are average. You know, they are better than a few factions, just not as good as some. And then I've got some elite units. I've got the infamous Archduke Charles Legion out here, chilling in the forest. These guys are pretty well dressed. I do like the blue pants and the sort of burgundy brown top. They do look very interesting. I really like them. And then there is the Emperors. No, those are the Hungarian Fusilier. They're slightly better than the German ones, but then there's these guys, the Emperor's Own, and these guys look absolutely badass. They got these little peacock feather sort of decorations on their hats, and they just look really amazing. They are pretty good at shooting as well, so they are pretty strong units. And then skirmish wise, I've got 4 units of these Grenzers. These guys are just standard sort of light infantry skirmishers. Nice blue pants and the brown tops as well, and they're going to be my skirmish line, and they're being supported by some Lundwehr, some peasants, some sort of militia, just to soak up enemy fire, which I'm doing now. And then I'm going to move my light infantry into range and take some shots at these British rifles. So we're getting some decent volleys off already against some of these light foot and riflemen. So my original plan was to sort of push up through the centre here. It's always quite nice to push through this forest here because you get all the cover right up to here. But that's how I normally play this map, very aggressively and very sort of forward, and I think it was it's something that I always do and I always get killed because of it. So in this one I saw that Britain was moving forward to take this ridge, so I decided to hang back in this forest and just use the forest cover to my advantage. There was no need for me to sort of push all the way up when I could just sit in this forest and let Britain come to me. So at the moment I'm just using my Lundwehr to distract the enemy rifles whilst I open fire with my light infantry. I'm getting a few decent shots off against the rifles, but we are weakening this King's German Legion foot quite a lot more than the riflemen anyway. As you can see, there's tons of bodies still already on the battlefield from the Lundwehr, and my own skirmishers are taking a bit of damage, so I might have to pull them back shortly, get them out of the range of fire. Whilst things are kind of calming down on this side, just exchanging fire. My ally over on this side is Russia, and he's positioned sort of in these woods and in this building here, in this little village. So he's sort of covering this flank quite well, actually. I do like this position. If France was to move this way, he would be able to push this flank and really hammer France. So that was a nice position at the start for Russia. I believe the Prussian player was a newer player. I think he only had 1 or 2 stars experience, which means very little. I really do hate the star system because it means very little in terms of skill. But he does a good job of holding this area. You know, he's got this building over here with some Jaegers, and then he's sort of exchanging fire with some British rifles with these Jaegers.
Our men are running, sir.
So I lose my other militia, but that's okay. That's what they are there for. We've now got some French voltigeurs in the forest now, which is a problem because I'm going to be outclassed by 4 of these guys and the British Lightfoot and the British Rifles. So I'm very out of my depth here. So I'm going to pull back my light infantry, hopefully pull back my elite units as well, and just try and use this forest cover as much as possible whilst the others do their job. I came up here with these Lightfoot to take some pot shots at these incoming French units. Unfortunately, I leave them slightly longer than I wanted to. These French units are going to be able to line up now and take some shots. And my Grenzers are going to take losses and are going to have to retreat. So I retreat them the heck out of there as quickly as possible. I do have some more light infantry to support them, but the French player is going to realise what I'm doing and pull back his troops. That National Guard did take a hell of a volley though, but they are just militia. And then I'm going to use my superior Hungarian hussars to good work here, charging forward into these French skirmishers and British skirmishers. I'm going to take some fire on the way in, but we're going to catch this the flank of this English line and really get stuck in to these skirmishers. The Hungarian hussars are pretty strong for light cavalry, but they are expensive, and I've got them in. They're in an awkward position here, really going to struggle, but they have got into all these skirmishes, and I'm going to force these guys back, allowing me to roll up to take on this Lightfoot with my own skirmishers. But the French player is going to react and is going to engage my own Lightfoot with his cavalry, and he's even going to get into the Archduke Charles Legion, which I was really slow with my squares. I think these guys just about get into square, but
our men are running.
It's not enough, and the French cavalry is going to just walk all over them, walk all over my Emperor's own, and just absolutely roll up this flank. I'm trying to pull back my light infantry, but it's not going too well. I was way too slow with a lot of my tactics here. I do have some German Fusilier in the back, being able to shoot in the flank of this cavalry. I do have the Uhlans coming in to stop, just to halt this cavalry so that my German Fusilier can get some flanking shots. So I was fortunate that these guys were sort of back slightly, you know, giving my men some levels of fire, and the Uhlans being able to hold off these French cavalry. And some dragoons are still pulling through to try and get to my German foot. But I do still have some Uhlans here, so we can push these guys back. But this was a really terrible situation. It was really bad micro on my part, and my Hungarian hussars here and then his here really did put pay to my force. I do have an extra Hungarian hussar here that cleaned up some British troops here, and it's going to. I think I'm going to pull it forward here to attack these British foot. We managed to just about get into square on time, but they are going to now get flanking shots by these voltigeurs. So, a very tough situation for these Hungarian hussars to be in.
Our men are running, sir.
Attacking a British square. And then we've got some great British dragoons coming in as well. Hopefully going to take a lot more damage than the French ones did on the way in. But I think my Hungarian hussars are going to struggle here. So the French cavalry's been dealt with, finally. And now the French infantry moves up to take advantage of the chaos. It looks like the French has sort of merged over here with the British to take on my flank. So the Russian player is going to look to sort of push the flank. But he's going to have to push it very hard because I am currently being shot to bits by the French. These are my Uhlans. These guys try and get into this square, but unfortunately these Swiss foot are going to resist. So my Uhlans are going to go down this way and try and push these other Swiss foot. Basically distract this entire line and force it to form square or die. Basically, is what my cavalry's purpose is going to be at this point. But these Swiss foot are going to severely outclass my German Fusilier. My German Fusilier are only average, whereas these Swiss foot are considerably better. The National Guard will do quite poorly, but they are only militia and they are only cheap, so any kills they get is going to be worth it. So I've moved up some more German Fusilier to take a flanking shot against these Swiss foot. But we do have some British foot moving up, and this is a problem I now face. I've got lines of French and British troops facing my thin lines of Austrian foot. And even though I was doing well in this place, in this area, now the British are going to be able to move up with superior numbers here, and then we've got the immense French flank here, being able to push hard against this thin area. So the Russians need to push up quickly and be really aggressive. He does have some troops in here just taking a shot at this flank. But as you can see over here, he's got a lot of his troops in these buildings, behind the building. You're just looking after this flank, which he doesn't need to defend this flank. There's literally nothing here other than these French troops. So it would have been better if he would have moved up his troops right here, right the way up, super close, and then shot, and then either charged or just kept shooting at the proper flank of these French troops. As you can see, the French troops are now completely focused on me and my force, and then we've got the British here, who's moved right up and is decimating my poor Emperor's own legions. So I'm going to activate the Archduke Ferdinand Cuirassier. I need to silence some of these British foot. I need to get them into a position where they are not going to be a problem. Form them square, make them form square, so that my German Fusilier have a chance at shooting them to death. And just basically make a mess of things. The Prussians doing the same, getting into these Highland foot and my Cuirassier are going to chase off these Highland foot as well. But as I said, there's just lines and lines of enemy troops. So every time we get into one of them with the cavalry, there's always a backup that ready to shoot our cavalry as they pull through. The Swiss foot are going for melee charges now, looking to get right into melee against our troops, giving room for the old guard to get in, which is a problem. The old guard are not to be messed with, and I'm struggling on this flank with the old guard now in combat, and the British send up reserves. I'm struggling. It was at this point that the Russians should have noticed what was going on and really pushed hard. The sooner he does it, the less of my troops I'm going to lose. But he just seems to be content with sitting in this forest, shooting this one unit, and using his Jaegers to shoot this one. He should really be pushing hard right the way up here, and either melee charge these guys to break them and then end up on right here, or it should be putting more firepower to bear, or using his cavalry, which has moved all the way up here for some strange reason. But yeah, my lines are thinning now. I'm not doing well at all. An early victory for me against sort of this flank has turned into a nightmare as the French roll up with the old guard and absolutely slaughter my German Fusilier, which we're not even content with facing Swiss foot and these British foot, but the old guard are just going to absolutely slaughter them. As you can see, the bodies from where the old guard have killed my poor Germans is mounting up. A brave stand, but one that is going to cost them their lives. Over on the other flank, there's a fight for this building, British foot against Jaegers. That's going to go the British way. And the Prussian player's holding back. This I liked, because he was a newer player. He wasn't in a position to really do much against the British, so I like the fact he was holding back. But it seems to have given the other British player a chance to move some troops over to my side. I don't know how many troops he came with, but I believe he's actually sent his light foot over here to attack me, and I believe there might be some lines of his over here. It doesn't tell you who the players are, so I can't tell you who's who, but certainly I am in a bad way now. My lines are thinning. I've lost my elite units over on this flank, except the Emperor Zone. They're still standing strong, but and my Germans are just not holding well at all. I've got the Czech regiment now shooting.
Our men are running,
So times are desperate when the Czechs are fighting, because they're not that good at shooting, but they are good in melee. So if they're having to shoot, then there's an issue. There's an issue with my formation. My general's still going strong. Joseph Alvinci. But I'm losing Germans, and now the Russians moved up with his troops, but this is too little, too late. And he needs all four of these troops right the way up here. And he needs to be able to sort of double team these units. You're two on one. It could have absolutely butchered these Swiss foot, but instead he's going in for one-on-one firefights against superior line infantry. And then to add insult to injury, there's some more Dragoon guards coming in, and again, I don't form square quickly enough, and they're going to absolutely butcher my lines that aren't in square. So that is an issue. Now these chasseurs are going to be able to move up, and you can just see the amount of bodies, the amount of lines that have had to suffer in this position. The old guard getting a bit eager, pushing forward, chasing after my Grenzers. I'm going to take a little pot shot at them. and try and halt them with my general. See if I can get him to break. Okay, trying to break the old guard is is a task in itself, but I would call it a small victory if I can make them waver and rout. So the general's bodyguard comes in, and the old guard do look like they're gonna break. You know, they go from steady to you're sort of shaken, and then back to confident, and that's going to stabilize, so my own forces are going to suffer, and my general being stuck in this melee is going to cost him his life. His life against the old guard. I think that's a worthy death, I think, for a general fighting against the old guard, and with his death it's going to cause my entire lines to falter and waver and eventually rout to these massed fire from the British. Oh, the Highland foot. The British do not take prisoners. So yeah, the Russian, he kind of watched my fight sort of degenerate into kind of a loss, and he now has an option. He can either push now, which would be way too late. Yeah, I've already lost the holding force, so the British and French could bring the full force to bear against his troops. Or he can pull back and try and take up a superior position. He's still content with sort of leaving his lifeguards and his superior troops and his cavalry in this position. So he might as well pull back at this point and just accept that he's reacted way too late. But yeah, I held very well against the French and the British there, but unfortunately my inferior troops were only going to hold. There was no victory against two lots of players. The amount of bodies over here is just absolutely ridiculous. Cavalry and infantry alike. The lines of the French and British troops losing some of their lives. It's a difficult fight for them, especially over here. But I think it's the Germans that suffered the most. The poor German Austrians really taking a hammering, especially on this side where the cavalry was striking them. That was just brutal. I really do feel for them because they had to face two lots of armies. So now the Russian is in a difficult position. He does have freshest troops. Does have fresh troops compared to the British, which did suffer a lot of losses trying to take my position. But there's going to be waves and waves of troops coming this way, and the British cavalry, still having British cavalry, no doubt, from right the way over here this time, because the British did lose a lot of our opponents lost a lot of cavalry trying to take the position, but they did use it very well. And even now, these British dragoons getting right into these Russian Jaegers. And that's going to cost the Jaegers, because they have no defense against cavalry. But these musketeers are now in a position to hopefully shoot at the cavalry. Maybe. There we go. Nice volley into the dragoons, weakening them considerably. But now the French have moved up, taking shots at these musketeers who were distracted elsewhere. The Russian cavalry reacting too late. It should be able to get into all of these voltigeurs, but again, the British dragoons have already done their job of distracting and disrupting this flank. So now the British are going to take this position here whilst they pin the Russians in the front. And all the Russians can do is hold this flank at this stage and wait for Prussia to do something on his. The Prussian is holding though. He's holding very well. These Prussian Fusiliers are sort of taking on the British foot. They are very much outshot in this position. These Jaegers are exchanging fire, I believe, with the light foot. So yeah, I'm pleased with how well Prussia's doing. Considering he was a newer player, he actually positioned himself quite well to actually hold the British. Unfortunately, he's sort of only up against 5, 6, 7 units, and the British is distracting 7 of his. So yeah, it's kind of a fairly even fight on this side. But I believe the British did send some troops over this way to assist the French and his British ally in engaging both me and these Russians. And the Russians do look like they've got a superior position here, and with these woods here, especially with especially with both these lifeguards on the flank, they are gonna rip through all of these units. Your Highland foot, even the old guard, are not really going to. I mean, this one's fairly fresh, but this one's severely weakened. So, you know, if he stretches the lines out here, it could absolutely slaughter the British foot. But his lines are thinning over here. His light Jaegers are having to pull back. And over here, the British have a superior flank on these poor Russian Jaegers, and they're going to move in for the kill. Again, Russia's still keeping a lot of his units in the house, which at this stage it's kind of all he can do. You know, is now sort of dug his own grave, as it were, with how he's set up. You know, there's no salvaging his defence now. He'll have to stick with this defence back here and pull back as needed. Oh, these British foot are going to get some nasty shots into the back of these lifeguards. Fortunately not doing a lot of damage. I think the lifeguards would have been best actually staying here and pushing up further, because there are some Prussian musketeers here taking some shots against some of these units. So having those lifeguard up there would have really helped to break this flank quicker. Whether he was scared that these units would flank him it's kind of a non-issue, because if he would have held here and shot these guys, and these guys moved up, then he could have brought his cavalry and his units from up here to flank, you know, kind of counter flank. But no, he's more than happy to sit back here in his little house. So it's going to be a fight for the house at the end of this, and it's going to be a fight that I believe the British and the French now have the numbers to succeed in. Some exchanging fire over here. That from the Russian Jaegers. So Prussia's trying to push across now. He notices that he's not going to beat his British opponent, so he's going to be sort of looking to pull over a lot of these troops. And some foot guards, again the musketeers that were over here, pull them over and try and get a flank on the French and the British, and just try and break them that way. So it's going to be a standoff for the house, for this little hovel many people will die. So yeah, it was a tough fight. I was not going to be able to beat two people. I was only going to be able to hold, which I did for a good 10-15 minutes. I just wish the Russian would have pushed harder. He could have really pushed this flank and really just decimated all of these French troops here. There was no reason for him to be so passive, especially when I was fully engaged. And the French were kind of fully engaged with me and one of his units. He should have really pushed forward and taken advantage of that. The British player was all the way up here and sort of along here, so he wouldn't have been in a position to stop the Russians from moving up. And the Russians could have just rolled this flank, freed up my Germans here, and then my Germans could have helped him flank, and we could have just pushed back all this flank right the way up to here, where the British were making more headway against me.
This building has fallen to the enemy.
And then what that would do is that would have the British over here may have had to send support, or he would have had to have pushed through Prussia quicker, which it's not even doing now. He's really this is kind of at a standstill. There's no victory going on here. It's all a standoff. So if we could have dealt with France and then this British player over here, we could have actually pushed on and helped Prussia. But the Russian was way too passive. More than happy just sitting in this house and just letting me sort of fight my own battle, which against two players was not going to go well. So we have some musketeers engaged with some German foot, the King's German Legion foot. That's going to be a victory for the musketeers, but they are getting shot in the process. So it was everything but a victory for the British. It was there just to distract these musketeers and stop them from reacting. We have some lone musketeers over here looking to fight the old guard. That's not something they are ever going to win at all. Their numbers are just way too low, and they are not in a great position to take on the old guard. So this battle's just a backwards and forwards from Russia and Britain for this house. I'm just going to speed it up and let you watch a few of the action, and we'll just catch up with the action once the building fight starts, because obviously whoever takes this house is going to be in a better position, especially with all these lifeguards still on the field for Russia. It's going to be tough to dislodge the Russians from the house. Even with the old guard, it's going to be a problem. So British rifles moving up. They're going to be able to shoot at these musketeers unimpeded. Looks like the French are raring up to engage the house. We've got some cavalry action here by the Pavlograd Hussars, destroying these Highland foot and getting shot in the process. These musketeers, in fact, these musketeers need to actually protect this house, because there are a lot of French troops now coming in. The old guard, the Swiss foot, these guard seamen. But the guard seamen are definitely good in melee, and the young guard as well. I just saw the young guard there. So guard on guard, the guard seamen and the young guard against some musketeers and some of these lifeguard afoot. These musketeers are actually in a great position to shoot at these French troops as they try and enter the building. Unimpeded fire is going to slaughter some of these French troops. If he can get some better fire against them, I think he could really mess up these French troops. Because this blob is going to be a very easy thing to slaughter. But the guards are pushing in. They are trying to push in. And now I think they're flooding in now, so it's the fire coming in is going to be less at killing them. And these old guard are going to hold the line over here, stop the musketeers and the life guards from getting too aggressive against the position. So in Russia's favour at the moment. A lot of these guards are actually weakened. The Swiss foot and the young guard and old guard taking a lot of damage. There are some big British foot guards and the Black Watch still in reserve, and those guys are pretty good in melee as well. Certainly the foot guards are, and the Black Watch are very dangerous in melee. The old guard are actually slaughtering these lifeguards of foot. It's a really poor position for them because they're actually not going to be able to fire back at the old guard from that position. Look at all the dead lifeguards there that were just in that zone of fire for France. So, a great use of the old guard there. You're outnumbered, but definitely not outgunned. So this fight is still raging on. Some of the morale of these musketeers is shaking. There are still a lot of lifeguards still in the vicinity, and the French troops are still getting weakened in this fight, so they are eventually going to lose out of that. Some British rifles, unprotected here, are going to get a nasty charge off these cuirassiers. And it really doesn't matter how much fire they pour into these cuirassiers, they are on a mission to kill these rifles. And they certainly will in melee with them. The cuirassiers are not to be messed with in melee against anything. Certainly not riflemen who are not in a position to do anything about it. He's going to pull them back and sort of get them in a position to refire. That's about as good as he can get from these rifles. But I think the cuirassiers are going to continue on their rampage. Get right the way into these riflemen. And even though they are outnumbered, these cuirassiers are going to still slaughter these riflemen. They are just a superior unit, already got chevrons. The riflemen are not going to be able to escape, so they might as well go into melee combat and try and stop these cuirassiers. The house combat's still going on. Again, weakening of these French troops. I believe that was a musketeer that broke there. The lifeguards are still holding this, although they are weakening. The more the French can pour into this fight, the better he'll be. The old guard now in melee with some foot guards. This is going to be some sweet guard on guard action. Let's see if we can. Oh yeah. With the Black Watch in the background, that is truly amazing. I do apologise for the lag if there is any. I am trying to play this on I'm trying to play this on high settings so that you can see all the bodies, but unfortunately it is completely ruining my my FPS. There we are. Freed myself from that.
Hope is lost, sir. This battle is almost done.
So we've seen this from the old guard point of view, and we're going to push into these lifeguards and try and slaughter the rest of them. The old guard are going to be slightly better than the lifeguards in melee. There's even some Black Watch coming forward to, I think, try silence the rest of these lifeguards. And they are fairly fresh, so this is going to be a slaughter of the lifeguards. With the old guard now massacring these lifeguards, and the lifeguards here are going to get a nasty Black Watch charge. Things are not going to go well on that flank for the lifeguards, and the house fight still going on, still going strong for the lifeguards, but these guards are still in the fight. They are still in the fight, and there are still a lot of troops about the place. These old guard, there's these foot guards. Black Watch are actually getting slaughtered. Jesus. They must have really not liked that combat with the lifeguards. That was really bad for the poor Black Watch. There are some Prussian reinforcements here. Too little, too late, I'm afraid. These foot guards are going to try and stop them, but all these foot guards need to do is hold them whilst the rest of these British troops come in and slaughter them. The old guard still against the foot guards. These foot guards are really putting up a fight against the mighty old guard. The combat seems to have evened out actually. The old guard taking a lot of damage from them. But they finally break the lifeguard. And now they're able to break into this building and help their fellow guardsmen. The guard seamen are going to be able to defend those guys. And the old guard have a special effect where they reduce the morale. They have a fear effect, so they reduce the morale of all units in the vicinity, and they're just going to walk in and everyone's going to run away. So yeah, fear the old guard because you kind of have to. And I believe that's just about all the Russian units. There's just this brave general going into combat against these flying Brits, these riflemen. Going to go on a one-way trip into the air, and again, riflemen are absolutely garbage in melee, so even the general's staff will be able to kill all of these riflemen. You're going to try rush over some support, which the Black Watch are about as good as support as you can get, and they're gonna. Are they going to rush into melee? They're probably going to be melee with these general's bodyguard. Yeah, just manages to rout the riflemen before the Black Watch come in and see off this general. He's going to get right into this general's bodyguard, who was probably tired, exhausted, and now under heel of the Black Watch, and it's going to break the general's bodyguard from the field. And that was the battle, a defeat for our team, and a nice victory for the opposing force. Again, Russia doing really well as far as kills go. He really did do quite a especially towards the end, he was definitely doing well holding against some decent factions. But unfortunately, he should have been assisting me a bit more with the push. Whilst I was holding, he should have been pushing that flank super aggressively. He was definitely way too passive in the forest, and it cost him because I couldn't hold off 2 people. It broke my force, and then he had to face 2 people, and it just became a flood of a flood against his forces. He definitely was not going to win that. He was going to kill a lot, he got a lot of kills, but that was only after I did my part in killing some of the English and the French troops. So it cost him by not helping me. But hey ho, teamwork and all that. It sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Again, I didn't get too many kills, but that's because my forces were severely outmatched. Austria's forces are not that strong anyway, but to be up against the French and the British, it's every time I killed a line, a fresh line came up, and it was just a slow grind to defeat. And then Devon was a newer player, the Prussian on that flank, getting some decent kills actually, and holding the British player. That's the most important thing. He was holding that British player in place, and even though the British player may have sent support around to help his British ally, it was good of him just to pin the British in place and just say, look, you can send as many troops as you want over to your ally, but I'm going to hold the majority of your forces here, and if you send too much, I'm going to push and I'm going to break you. And that's what Devon was doing, and so it was good of him to do that. And then the opposing team, obviously getting a lot of kills. The French player being unimpeded in being able to attack me, absolutely slaughtered a lot of my Germans, so he got a lot of kills for that. And then the 2 British players doing okay on their side. Some great cavalry action from both France and Britain. I have to applaud them for that, because as I say, I couldn't get my squares in time, and you're just absolutely lost all cohesion then. It was terrible, especially for my Archduke Charles Legion. That is a loss I cannot mourn enough. The Archduke Charles are my favourite legion in this, and it was just such a shame for them to lose so abruptly. But a good game to my opponents, really played very well. And as I say, my allies, they did okay. We were okay, but we could have really done with winning this. And as I say, if the Russian would have pushed that flank harder, we were in with a better chance of breaking the French and eventually breaking the British before my own lines falters. But anyway, that was the game, guys. Let me just actually show you some of my statistics. The Emperor Zone, one of the first ones in, held quite well, 89 kills. Could have done with getting a bit more, but that's, they got a chevron experience, and they were doing their job quite well. Czech regiment, really not in a great position for them. They only have about 40 missile accuracy, which is just about as much as my German Fusilier. They needed to be in melee combat, which, again, there wasn't an opportunity to really get them into melee combat with anything. So they suffered by having to shoot as opposed to charge in. My Archduke Charles Legion getting absolutely butchered. 26 kills for those guys. Really not good by them. They really suffered against that cavalry. The Cuirassiers as well, only 15 kills for such an expensive unit. It's not great at all. Really poor performance by them. My Germans actually did really well. German Fusiliers, 132. That's impressive by a German Fusilier that only costs about 700, as opposed to say a sort of a 720 Prussian musketeer unit, or I believe the British foot are about 760. So really great by those guys, considering they were killing British and French troops. 78 again, these are about average for a German Fusilier, really good there. 44, this one struggled. I think this one really struggled. It may have been the one out in the open, probably against the old guard. and then my light foot's doing okay, but you know, it was hard for them, especially against rifles and all of those British lines, and then the cavalry just swept in and slaughtered them. It was all about the cavalry for the British and French, and they did their job. These Hungarian Fusiliers not doing well at all. They are slightly more expensive than the Germans, so I didn't want to bring too many of them. And this is why, if they don't do well, it's very cost inefficient of them. My cavalry serving just as a distraction. They did the job quite well actually, even though they didn't get many kills. They were there purely to distract. And then the rest of my units, 14 for General's Bodyguard, whatever. It's not meant to be in combat, so yeah. And then my Lundwehr and Lurans, again, just being distraction, just trying to mess with the enemy. So, a good game. As I was impressed with my Austrians being able to hold that long, but, victory was to be decided on the Russian flank, and he didn't push that hard. Not saying he's a terrible player, but, in that situation, you should have known that I was not going to be able to hold against France and Britain, and I needed him to push the flank harder to break the French flank. So, it was a tough situation for me, but again, we all played quite well, and it was just that small error that ended up costing us a bit. So disappointing, but again, that's Napoleon for you. The wrong decision at the wrong time could cost you the entire battle. Welcome to Napoleon Total War. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you all hopefully in another Napoleon battle, where we will hopefully get victory. I'll certainly be looking for a victory for my next one, and I may have to pull out the big guns in the next battle, so I shall see you all then.